If there's meaning in life at all, life isn't just about the rainbows and butterflies. Also, there's purpose to be found in the suffering that you're going through. The test for all of us is the response to that suffering. I'm Rhett.
And I'm Brandon.
And we're the House Dads. Because we're dads who sell houses.
But we're also husbands, business owners, sports freaks, Christians,
friends, marketing nerds, TV show bingers, and so many more things.
Like so many of you, we're just trying to do it all. We're trying to do it well.
And that's what we're here to talk about. Guys, welcome back. We are on episode 37. 37.
It's big, man.
We're getting there.
Flew by.
Do we know where we're going? Not really, but we're getting there.
We're going there together.
We're getting closer together.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a great one for you today. You're probably just tuning in. You're like, you know what? Let me just pop in a little House Dads, get a little lighthearted episode out of this.
Yeah.
And that's what we have for you.
Yeah, for sure. So to start off with a lighthearted question for you, Rhett.
Hit me.
What is the true meaning of life? I'm not going to make you answer that right now, but really, that is what we're going to be talking about today. The true meaning of life, the search for the meaning of life. And like, man, whoa, that's a lot. You've probably seen the title at this point, and you're probably here for a reason. But you may take something away from this that you probably didn't expect. Because, yeah, I think you will. Because we really, what motivates us every day is to find some type of meaning. Whether we think about it or not, the decisions we make, the way that we schedule our day, the thoughts that we think, it's dictated by finding some meaning in life. And we're going to dig into it today. And what I hope it does too is it helps you think more about what you think about and what your focus is. Because, you know, it's a deep topic. And so sometimes we can go too wide with it,
right.
But it really fuels like all the decisions we make. It really fuels our priorities and it fuels our purpose.
This is a topic that I feel like I struggled with a lot, surprisingly, during high school.
Yeah, I get it.
Which I think that's probably a time where
discovering
a lot of people are
yourself.
trying to reevaluate. But yeah, the older we're getting, like that stuff kind of starts to become more fine-tuned. Of like, all right, what are we doing here on this world?
Right.
What's our purpose? What do we have to do? But yeah, that's the lighthearted topic. Yes, you saw the title. That's what we're going to be talking about. So whether you want to hear about the topic or you just have nothing else to listen to, you're going to get something out of it.
Yes, you are. I agree.
But yes, you hear this topic, this conversation going on by a lot of different psychologists and thought leaders, theologians, social media influencers trying to weigh in on what they think.
Right.
And you just see so many different opinions and just variation of what they think, if they're trying to get clicks or what they truly believe. But we're going to be talking about two opposites, and we're going to be diving into which one we think is correct.
Right.
But the two polarizing opposites that we're going to be talking about can be summed up between two things. Does the meaning of life boil down to the pursuit of pleasure or purpose? Yeah,
that's really kind of the two polarizing ends of the spectrum here that we're going to be talking about. And the first, and I don't want to trash on the one that we don't agree with the most, but
open mind.
It comes from Freud, who many of you, if you've ever had any kind of psychology class in college or anywhere, you know who Sigmund Freud is, right? And but if you don't, he was an Austrian neurologist, and he was the inventor of psychoanalysis.
He didn't invent the light bulb, huh?
No, that was your other favorite guy. I'm not going to even mention him by name, but I'm sure you will.
His name was Thomas Edison.
Yeah, you're going to find a way to drop it soon. But he's attributed a lot of different psychology ways of thinking and methods and all that different stuff. And he said some pretty cool and quotable things. Like one of the things I read about him, he said this. He said, "One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful." I'm like, man, that was pretty quotable or tweetable or what is it? Exable now.
Exable?
Yeah, anyway. But according to Freud, his meaning of life, or the search for the meaning of life, is an illusion to itself. It's kind of meaningless. Mm-hmm. Is that like what he says, and I did a lot of study behind this, is that like people searching for the meaning of life are searching for the wrong thing.
Right.
That like he's saying that you just need to be present, but what he's saying about the present is you're searching for something that you're not going to find because life itself is meaningless. That's a pretty heavy thing that he says. Man. And what he's saying is it's really just his conscious and subconscious thoughts that make our mind up to find some type of meaning. But he says, and his belief is that our human minds and our focus for everything is for pleasure. That's the real meaning. And I don't want to bash it too much, but I would like to show the counter argument, if you will. And what I believe is that pleasure is something that's fleeting. It's something that we can never really obtain, that it's momentary, and that we really need to look for purpose and not for pleasure. And I think what it is that even when we have a glimpse of the purpose that we want to carry out in our lives, or we're trying to find our purpose, when we lose sight of it, when things are hard, or when things are boring, or when things are frustrating, we lose sight of our purpose. And then what we do is we numb the lack of the feeling of purpose with pleasure.
Yeah.
That's why we feel like, okay, we just got to get to this vacation.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you get on that vacation, you dread going back home because you don't have any purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's like, oh, I just got to buy new clothes, or I got to buy a new toy, or I got to buy something else that's going to bring me pleasure. And it's really because we're lacking purpose. Now, don't get me wrong. I love vacations, right? Like, that's one of my favorite things, is taking vacations with my family. But I'm just saying that sometimes we're numbing ourselves by the pursuit of pleasure because we don't have any purpose.
Yeah, and how many times do we have to like counteract that with our kids of like, that's what they're looking for every single day. What do I get? I want this, I want that. And like, they're looking for that pleasure, and we have to, as much as we can with a 5 and 3-year-old on my end, like, hey, life's about, it's like, all right, no,
we're not going to be diving into that with them.
No.
They can be like, look, Viktor Frankl said, no, that's what we're going to be talking about. Is we're going to be diving in more too, because we believe life is not just a pursuit of pleasure, it's a pursuit of purpose. And what we're going to dive into today is in 3 ways of our life that we can find purpose through everything. And I got this from an incredible book. It's from a guy named Viktor Frankl, and the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And this book, man, it's filled with some incredible stories of Viktor in concentration camps in Nazi Germany. Yeah. And so, like, just even think about him writing a book about finding purpose in a place where you obviously couldn't find any pleasure.
Of that.
Yeah, like finding purpose in the midst of intense persecution. He writes about the meaning of life.
That's the last thing I would be doing.
It's.
I say that probably wouldn't write it down. I'd be thinking it, but
it's super impactful. So I'd encourage you to pick up the book. It's an older book, but a lot of people have done a lot of study on it and talk about it, and so that's what we're gonna be going through today.
Yeah, love it. And so Frankl claims that one finds meaning through 3 different ways, and that's kind of what we're going to be going through love and through suffering, right? Now, through work, through love, and through suffering.
Right,
we're going to kind of deep dive into those 3 things. So the first one is purpose through work. Honestly, that is something that I am extremely, extremely passionate about.
Right.
One thing whenever, before getting into the meat of that, but like before Brandy and I got married, one of the topics we talked about, she wanted to be on the mission field and move to, she's fresh out of like mission trip to Haiti, and to like all these, she wanted to go move overseas.
Let's go.
I was not that I'm not passionate about it, but I was like, I really feel like my calling is through the business world. Yeah. And not to say I won, right? But like we kind of landed on, wow, we can actually find purpose and do a lot through our work, through something that's every day. We don't have to be labeled a pastor, a missionary. We can be a realtor, a business person, and find that purpose and make a difference. Yeah. But all that to say, it's hard to find a purpose through our work, especially with the stress of like, we work because we need to make money. We need
crap,
to
I got to pay the bills.
Yeah,
that's the purpose.
We got to keep the lights on. A lot of people see that's the purpose. Yeah. But Frankl said that the key to finding meaning in work is twofold. The first is we need to engage in work that is creative. And I know you're hearing that. You're like, all right, look, I'm a cybersecurity hacker.
Yeah.
You don't.
I'm a pipe fitter. Yeah.
You don't get a lot of like flexibility or freedom to do those things. But again, it's easy for us to say too because we're realtors and we're able to like express that through marketing and stuff. But that's not an excuse to not find it.
No, I think a lot of that creativity is doing what you do and doing it well. Yeah. Right? Like creativity and excellence like come hand in hand. It's like, man, if you're a pipe fitter, be the best one that there is. Yeah. If you're a welder, be the best one that there is.
That is, how do I get more efficient with it? How can I get creative to make this task become more efficient, become more purposeful?
That's it. I've met some friends of mine that I have no clue what they do. Right? Like I would never be able to do it. Okay, cool. Yeah. But then they like explain to me how they're coming up with new systems and ways of doing things and different stuff. That's creativity we're talking about. Yeah. So,
Love it. So that's the first way. You got to engage in work that's creative. And the second way is that we have to find purpose through our work that is aligned with a purpose greater than ourselves. Your purpose for work is not necessarily to, yes, it is, you got to make money, you got to pay the bills, but find something in your work that is greater than you. And that can be hard, depending on your task and what you're doing every day. And maybe that's not that you're doing work directly. That you can do work that contributes to a bigger purpose. So maybe not in your work, but the money you make from your work, you can find a bigger purpose, right? So
yeah, I think that like, I think about my dad when it comes to that, because like right now it's really easy for what we do for a living to find purpose through it. Like we're helping people with the largest financial transaction they'll ever make. And as team leader and as a broker, like I'm helping my agents build their businesses and support their families. So I can find a lot of purpose with that. But I think about my dad who started our business, but has not sold real estate in the last 7 years at this point.
Right.
And so it was a transition of he had to go from, I find purpose in helping the people in our office and all these different things, where he was lacking purpose. So what he did was take the money that he got from work and did something bigger than himself with that. And he, helped support and start an orphanage in Haiti. And it's like, so it's not necessarily that your work has to connect to the greater purpose, like your direct work, exactly what you're doing for a living, but you can take the things that you make, you can take the money that you make, and then you can contribute to the bigger purpose. And sometimes that's simply providing for your family.
Yeah.
And that is the bigger purpose than yourself.
I always love when I see like a stay-at-home mom or dad, man, I could not do it.
Yeah, me either.
But the people that do it, I know that there's often a struggle of like, what is my purpose? Like, even if it's just for one purpose, you're stewarding that child to be something greater. To maybe even be the one who does the pedestal worthy things, right?
That's right.
That's to have that perception or that perspective is just,
it's huge.
It is.
It's huge. And that's where we get off track, is that if we're not finding our purpose in our work, then all we're looking for is the pleasure in it. And if there's no pleasure there, then man, it's exhausting and it wears us out. Because a lot of times our work, we call it work for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's difficult. It's if you don't find purpose, you're going to burn out. You're going to be looking for the next thing. So find purpose through your work. And the second thing is to find purpose through love, right? Nah, it sounds sweet. Sounds sappy, but no, it's all about love, man. Mm-hmm. Like we find so much of our purpose in relationships. And Frankl makes the point that he makes it about love, that it has an everlasting purpose because it connects with people. Yeah. And if we find purpose through the people and the relationships and the things that we love, it usually manifests itself in serving others, right? It's less about finding purpose in how we're loved, and it's more about finding purpose in loving others. It's not about the gifts that we receive. It's about the gifts that we give. Frankl quotes another guy in his book that kind of sums this up, and I can't even pronounce the other guy's name. So read the book. I didn't even put it in here because I couldn't say it. But the quote is he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Ooh, and so what I'm saying by that is, like, it's not that we need to find how in the purpose. It's the why. Yeah. It's the why that fuels us. It's the why that allows us to endure. It's the why that brings us purpose. And oftentimes our why is found in the love that we have for other people, right? It's the why that motivates us for our children, for our spouses, for our friends, for our family. And so the how can really bog you down. The how is where the pursuit of pleasure gets lost in, but the why is where the purpose comes from. So we can find that purpose through love.
That's often what I do with our team members on our team, is before we get into the nitty gritty of like, all right, how do I grow my business? It's like, all right, let's get to the root of why you're even in this business. Huge. So we film, like we do our content days, and everybody has their My Why video. And the common theme, they just have a desire to, of course, we don't say love. We just love people. Exactly. But it's like we desire to help people through this big transaction.
And like you said, it manifests itself in serving.
It shows love.
And I think about that when he's talking about, like, he's in the middle of a concentration camp and he wrote this book and saying, one of the biggest ways you find purpose is through love. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, how are you doing that? Well, he's realizing that even in those tough times, and you're about to get into this more in a minute, like even in these tough times, like when you're squeezed, what comes out? And for him, he found purpose in loving others and serving others.
So purpose through love. Brandon gave me the topic of the third, purpose through suffering, right? That is a topic that I feel like that's always like resonated with me growing up in church, it's like people were so caught up in this idea that there was no suffering in life.
Right.
Like once you got to a point or hit your goals or whatever, like suffering is to be expected.
Yeah.
Right. It is just, we're in a fallen world.
Yeah.
So finding
universal
purpose
to our existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding purpose through that suffering. So obviously he is in the middle of a concentration camp. He is going through the ultimate, hardcore suffering, something that we're never probably going to be able to relate to.
Right.
We can go through some pretty hard times in life. That was just a different level of hard. But we are, a quote he says, if there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an eradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete.
It's heavy.
Golly.
Yeah.
Rewind that back and listen to it again. But it's true. Like if there's meaning in life at all, life isn't just about the rainbows and butterflies. Also, there's purpose to be found in the suffering that you're going through.
Right.
He goes on to say that the test for all of us is the response to that suffering.
Yeah.
That's big, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to go through suffering of some sort, but how do you respond to it? Do you respond to it with bitterness and just sunken depression, which some people, can last longer than others,
Sure.
but how do you rise out of it? How do you respond to it? The last quote he had, or the last quote I have for it, the way in which a man accepts his fate and all the suffering it entails, the way in which he takes up his cross gives him ample opportunity, even under the most difficult circumstances, to add a deeper meaning to his life.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
Golly.
this book is loaded, man.
Dude.
Like the things that he went through, and when he's talking about this whole deal of suffering, one of the things he talks about too is that, like, if the meaning of life was pleasure, right, then like these times of suffering, you wouldn't be able to grow from, you wouldn't be able to change from, you wouldn't be able to even get out of, because you're like, it's pointless, it's meaningless. Mm-hmm. And what he's saying is the suffering isn't meaningless, that the suffering can have a purpose, that you can find a new purpose to help other people, to grow. Like, think about him being here, turning that suffering into purpose and inspiring people to where we're talking about a podcast about him today.
Yeah. And we've packaged this and given it to you in a different way on other podcasts of like, hey, we learn from our mistakes when we fail. If you want to go deeper and call it suffering, it's suffering too. You learn from it. It gives meaning to your life. So love through the suffering. No, find purpose in the suffering.
But love it too.
Yeah.
Love through it too.
Love it.
All of it. But, I think you're like, okay, well, how does this change my focus? And I think if you think about what you think about and you think about what fuels you and motivates you and drives you, is it like, are you just trying to go to work so you can make enough money to take those kids on the vacation, or to get the new house or to get the new toy and to get to all those different things? It's like, man, it's a vain pursuit. It's exhausting. And that's why it's like, it sounds cliche, but it's like, that's why like people who have all these different things can still be miserable, because there's no end to that. Right. Because there's no level of satisfaction that comes from, oh, well, I've got all the pleasure and I'm good. Right. That's one of the things that Rainn Wilson's been going around saying, that even in the greatest time from the outside of his life, it was it was the darkest time in his life, even when he thought he had it all together. And so what Frankl is saying when he talks about the meaning of life, and he talks about it towards the end of his book, one more quote from him, it says, we need to stop asking the question about the meaning of life and instead think of ourselves as those who are being questioned by life. So we flip the script. Like what he's saying is instead of us asking, what is what is the meaning? What is our purpose that we get out of this? We ask life, or life is asking us, what are we going to do with it? Yeah. Like daily and hourly, our answer, and he says our answer must consist not in talk, but in the right action, in the right conduct. Life ultimately means taking responsibility to finding the right answers to its problems and to fulfill the task which it constantly sets for each individual.
Frankl sounds like a cool dude, man.
Dude, Frankl's hardcore. Yeah, I think
he's going through a lot. So
yeah, I think Frankl was the first Jocko.
Yeah,
like he just like with that type of thing, it's like Frankl was in a situation that he did not deserve. And a lot of times the suffering that we go through, obviously we don't deserve, right? Some of the suffering that we go through was because of our own decisions. Yeah. And so Frankl's saying, I'm not going to be a victim of my circumstances. This has happened to me, but I'm not going to ask life, oh, why did this happen to me? Yeah. I'm going to say it's happened, so how am I going to respond to it?
Right.
It's a big challenge for us.
It is. And like, again, this is a very we may not necessarily solved your dilemma of what you feel the purpose of your life is. I think we're giving you points and things to think about. Of course, we have our opinion on the purpose. It's not pleasure. It is finding purpose.
Right.
But we hope these give you some just thinking points.
Right.
Like how can you better articulate your thoughts and actions into finding purpose in your work, your love, your suffering, and all.
That's right. And we like to leave you with a challenge. So the question is what meaning are you chasing after? Right? Like, are the decisions that you make fueled for the pursuit of purpose or fueled for the pursuit of pleasure? And each of us have to answer that question individually and uniquely for ourselves, right? Because based on our circumstances and our relationships and our experiences, it's unique to us. But you almost look at it to a degree like life is testing you. Yeah. And like Frankl said, the answer is found most often in how we respond to it.
I think this will relate, but I oftentimes in our stage of life with young kids and like building our careers, it's easy to get caught up in I just wish I had more time to grow the career and become more successful. I just need more time to rest at home. And there's often times where the girls will go to the grandparents' house for a while. Right. And we get a whole free day. Or maybe my wife will go out of town or something like that. And then after a while, I'm like, this is of course I fill that time with work.
Sure. Yeah.
And it comes to a point where I'm like, this ain't it.
Same one as cracked up to me.
I know the purpose of life is not to build success in that way.
Yeah.
It is to be with them and to build something with them.
Yeah.
And I miss them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It hit me big when I was preparing for this, when it was like, you get that feeling in a very simple way. It showed me that in areas of my life, I really am seeking pleasure so much. Yeah. And it's okay, man. I want you to enjoy things. I'm not saying that, but we just can't glorify it over our purpose, because I had just finished, I finished a series. What series did I finish? I don't know what it was.
Gilmore Girls?
No, it wasn't Gilmore Girls for the 15th time, but I finished a series, and when I got done with that series, I was like, crap, I need to find a new one.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling of, there goes that last pleasure, that last escape that you have. So you got to go replace it with another one, and it could be a Netflix show for you, or it could be something else. Mm-hmm. And it's funny right now, that's the most common thing you see on Facebook is looking for new show recommendations.
Yeah.
I've done it before too. I'm not bashing, right? Love it. But it's man, we just go from pleasure to pleasure to pleasure to pleasure, trying to numb ourselves because we don't have the purpose.
Yep. Yeah, man. Hopefully this wasn't too deep for you on this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday drive, wherever you are right now. But yeah, it's something to think about.
Yeah, hopefully it resets your focus.
Don't ever neglect thinking about deep and hard things. I feel like this is a question a lot of people think about, but they don't pursue.
Right.
Because they're afraid of the answer.
Yep.
And we're here to tell you that answer. There's purpose in that journey that you should follow.
That's right.
But yeah, you got anything else?
That's it, man.
You hit them hard.
Yeah.
Now go face the day.
Go get it.
Go do it. But no, we appreciate you guys listening. We're always honored that you give us your time. We're always wanting feedback. Give us some feedback on what you want to hear, what want to hear more of, less of. But yeah, we're just happy you stuck around for this one. Can't wait for the next one.
Yes. Who dat? Go Saints.
Who dat? Go Saints. And we'll see you next time.